I get myself situated, ready for this podcast. Professional Mark shows up, and we start the interview. And as I was telling today's guest, I didn't fix myself today. I just got off a coaching call. Had a lot going on in that coaching call. I've been traveling straight for 3 weeks. I am absolutely, completely out of sorts. That's what you're getting today. But that's really okay, because our guest today comes from one of my favorite person in the world, besides my sons, is my nephew, Brady Sadler. Not only is he a brilliant marketer, brilliant entrepreneur, huge in the podcast space, but he's just one of my favorite people, and is connected to some of the most fabulous people in the world. And Mark Anderson is his personal trainer. Said, Mark, you've got to meet Mark. Like, you two have, it's got to be Mark squared. You guys got to meet. So we got on the phone, and I was on my dog walk. And an hour later, we're still chatting away. So we're simpatico on a lot of stuff. One of the things I like about certain, we'll call them personal trainers, is that some actually know that it's more than the physical. It's even more than the emotional. It's a holistic person that they're working with. And Mark happened to just completely go into his own university of life, in the university of humanity, to figure himself out. What makes people tick? How can I serve my clientele? Kind of like what a coach would do, executive coach. I talk to my clients about nutrition and exercise, even though I'm not going to train them on that stuff, because we want to work with the whole people. So having Mark on the podcast, I said, you know what? I'm not going to fix myself today, because we're going to do some exercises live for you to learn. Officially, Mark Anderson is a functional personal trainer with over 15 years of experience. He's a master biohacker, high performance coach, mindset and spiritual coach, body transformation expert, and is passionate about integrative root cause wellness. I said it a little messily. He's got it in his bio. He just knows what makes us tick. He looks at the whole human, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, to create the ultimate transformation for his clients. He started his journey in the military, moving to defense contracting, which probably didn't last long, because that's not a place for someone like him. But he ended up following his passions for wellness and fitness. Um, a couple of things that I got from his website that I thought was really, really interesting is he loves to speak about identifying 3D stressor problems and seeing how we can spiritually yet systematically move through them in a beautiful flow state energy. Again, I'm not at my best right now. We're going to work on getting me at my best. He guides folks through, sometimes he uses science, sometimes it's faith, sometimes it's beliefs, awareness, pattern interrupts, and more. That's stuff you've heard on this podcast. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Mark, Mark Squared, thank you for being here and listening to me talk about you in this while you sit there and smile.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure, and I'm looking forward to it.
My first question is, why do you care? Why do you care about all of these aspects of the diamond of being a human being?
Yeah, I love that question. Thank you. I think about suffering a lot. I know it may sound weird, but I was in the military. I got to see a lot of suffering when you're going through boot camp, when you're going to your duty stations, when you're doing 4 years. Even as a defense contractor, I got to see a lot of that. And I just don't like when people suffer. And so I think, well, what could my role be to help people suffer less and make them the highest performer that they could be? And a lot of that stuff that happens, it's all up here. And as you were saying in the intro that I love, thank you. When you look at personal training, you're going, okay, why, what's the journey someone has to go on to change their body? And then they change their body, but they don't change up here, and they're not really aware of it. They're not conscious aware. So when I started to get into this space, I was thinking, why is all this so important to me? Is because I want people to be living their most beautiful, best life, and stop the suffering and realize what's making them suffer. If that's a body, if that's a environmental thing, if it's, the fact that they haven't been able to get their brain right in maybe their whole life, like, how do we actually get the brain to start functioning and use science and all these different biohacking things and technology that we're we're so lucky to have in this world right now, to help people get to the next level. So, I mean, I could go probably 2 or 3 hours on this, but I'll keep it short and say, I don't like people suffering, and I want to get them out of their suffering. And, some people are not suffering, but they want to go to a next level. They're performing at a decent level, and they want to go to the highest level. And I think it starts to ask deeper questions of how do we do that in a safe, fun, kind of healthy way and a real way. And there's so much out there that I think people don't know what to do. And then they just get stuck. They get frozen. And, it creates this kind of shock where they're like, where do I go from here? Where is my health and wellness journey going? So I don't know if that answers the
No,
question.
that answers your question. If you go on Instagram, uh, you can get 5 different opposing opinions on the validity of broccoli as a health food
Yes.
or not, right? And so yeah. How do we know what's going to be good for us? Someone asked me this. I was doing some branding on this next phase of and my next book and what I want to when I talk about. And he asked me, what do you think, Mark, is the reason people suffer? What do you think people's biggest problem was? And I actually had an answer for that question. Do you have an answer for that question? What do you think a common denominator problem is for most of the people you work with?
I really do think you have to meet people where they're at. And so everyone needs different style of coaching, right? Some people, and so to answer the question straight up, I think it's this 3D, everything we see around us, the computer that you're looking at, the computer I'm looking at, all this technology, all the house, the cars, the things that we have in our lives, the things, they can be relationships sometimes, it can be business, it can be money, but there are things. And the last I checked, I don't know for you, but like all of our loved ones that have left their physical body, they didn't take it with them. And we see this all the time. People leave their physical bodies, they don't take their stuff with them. So I see it as like this 3D thing where we get so stuck and we get so inundated right now, especially with technology. We can use it as a great tool, but I think the biggest thing is we get stuck in this 3D world of stuff, and we don't know what to do because we need to get more stuff. We need to make more money. We need better relationships, more friends, more trips, more whatever. And it's all understanding that's all good if we're keeping it in balance, just like we're doing with anything else with our health and wellness. So my answer to that would be it's a very 3D problem.
So in other words, the more we get, the more we want. The trap.
Yes,
The more we get, the
totally.
more we have to work to support what we got.
Yes.
It's always like one of my biggest fantasies was having a saltwater fish tank. Just love I love tropical fish. And 4 years ago, I got a saltwater fish tank, and my entire living room is decorated and lives around this fish tank. And I
Oh,
have a
that's beautiful.
thousand dollars worth of fish in that tank, right? Uh,
Yeah.
Over the last 2 weeks, every single fish in my tank has died.
Oh my gosh.
Right. And I was just talking to the phone on the guy who comes and cleans my fish tank. And he
Yeah.
says, Mark, he says, I know you love your tropical fish. I know you love the saltwater fish. He says, but they're expensive and they're delicate. We could switch this over since all your fish are dead. We could switch this over to freshwater tank. Those fish don't die and they're cheap. And I'm like, no, I need the expensive fish to maintain. And yes, I'm going to pay you the $200 a month you come in to clean my tank. So yeah, so it's a total trap to have you get the thing that you want, and now you have to work to maintain it.
Totally. And I think that going into it, it's you understand like exactly what you just said. I love looking at it. It's beautiful, but where do I need to focus some things to say like, okay, if I am going to do that and I want that, is it just a beautiful balance, or is there some overwhelm that's going on here that I need to look at to create or to keep having the fish? And
Exactly.
and then you can go, it allows you to relate to so many different things in so many different ways and start different conversations, because I think everyone has a fish, everyone has a tank. We just have to figure out what that is.
Some version of that. And
Yeah.
yes, I have not learned my lesson. I was thinking about like I could have taken that money and put it into Bitcoin. Been
Yes.
putting towards retirement instead of putting towards these fish who would rather be in the Indian Ocean anyway.
Yeah.
So let's change gears here and kind of talk about solutions. Uh, can you just kind of run down just a little bit of general, like you work with executives,
Yes.
you have some high powered people come in who are like, I get shit done in the world. I need to get shit done in the gym so I can be at my best. Take us through some of the places that you kind of focus. Kind of a summary of where you focus on with people.
Yeah, I love that. So, again, I think it's understanding where people are at. So if someone's coming in with an issue, or if you're listening to this and you're going, oh man, this is really something I want to work on in my life, or, whatever goals you have or aspirations towards things, you look at where you're at and go, okay, well, what's it going to take for me to get to this goal? And what are things I can start to change immediately, to get into that space of, and the easiest things I think about is just like we were just talking about is moving into this idea of where am I currently in the sense of like my body, where am I in the sense of like physically, where am I in the sense of my mindful spot, right? Like, because this is part of it for business and for relationships and all of that type of stuff. You got to get those things in. And, where do I want to be, whether I'm a high powered CEO or, working any place, like, hey, you could be working at a local farmer's market. You could be at Whole Foods. You could be working at Target. You could be anywhere, this is what's beautiful about technology and the things that we're all around right now. Whether you are high powered CEO, hedge fund, wherever you're working, coming into this space, you go, what are you doing though to take care of yourself? Because yeah, I get you're a high powered something or other, or you're working, everybody's thing is important to them. That's what I think is also is seeing that and going, look, whether it is, you're working more at a local space at a local farmer's market selling stuff, or you're working in $1 billion company, everyone's human here. So if everyone's human, then you look at that from a different perspective and go, everyone's suffering from human problems. How do we fix that? And if you're high powered, sometimes you don't want to hear what people have to say. And that's where I come in, right? That's where I've had a lot of people push back and say, I'm not doing that. And that's where it's fun because I go, oh, great. You're not doing that. Perfect. You're going to suffer then. And they go, what? What do you mean? And I say, look, you just got to take stock of where you're at and see how you can move forward when we're working in high performance jobs and careers. We need to have ways to de-stress our body. If we don't, that I don't care what the job is, you're going to suffer. That job's going to suffer. You're not going to make as much income as you could. You're likely the people under you aren't going to be happy, or you're going to have to use so much energy to fake it to make them happy. You're going to go home. And by the time you get home, the family and all that, they're getting the second best version of you. They're not getting the highest version of you. So my questions I always start asking, what are your goals? Like, is it more of a, I often like to go to more of a scientific approach than I do a spiritual one, because when people start hearing spiritual, they get turned off. They're like, oh, spiritual, that's not going to work for me. I'm like, all right, cool. What's going to work for you? Tell me what's going to work. And then I'll give you some tools. And that's what I love about biohacking and using, a lot of these crazy tools out there. Like right now, I'm putting my feet on a PEMF mat, which we can talk about later. But one of the easiest ones is, and I hope I'm not getting ahead of myself, but
I told you we're not going to talk about the BMF, man.
yeah, I know.
We already had that conversation. Let me ask the question differently. Give me a hierarchy of like base to high level of where you work with. Like, let's say sleep. I think sleep is probably the first thing we have to look at.
Oh, totally.
In order to have attention. So go up the ladder for me of let's say we don't even know where to start. Where's the first place you look?
I was actually just going to say that because I couldn't agree more. Where do you start? I think we need to start with things that are easily accessible and free to ourselves, right? So yeah, sleep is free and whatever, but you still sometimes don't have time, right? You're getting home late, whatever. Breath though. This is where I think this is a very important tool for any person that's listening to this to understand. You can do breath work whenever you want, and a breath is free. And a breath can take you from a really high stressed out state
Mm.
to a very, 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 very calm state. And I hope you can understand that that wasn't your podcast slowing down. That was me
That
slowing
made perfect.
down.
I was actually, I meant to actually ask you to jump right into actually helping me calm my nervous system to conduct a better interview. I think this is a good time for you to help me. Can we do like a short 5-10 minute breath work thing?
We could do
That
it even shorter, but yeah, we can do
Yeah,
it however
let's do a
long you
short.
want.
Let's do one that people who are listening can do, like listen to this over and over again in practice.
Yeah.
Take me through it, and I'll be a better interviewer when we're done.
All right. I love this. Okay. So here's the first thing I want you to do. I want you to close your eyes. And I know that's hard, but like it's first thing, easy, right? Close your
If you're
eyes.
driving, wait till you get to your
Yeah.
destination and
Thank you for saying
rewind.
that. What he said, I meant to say that. If you're driving, to close your eyes. And
He's
I want,
working with me now, not you.
yeah, exactly. If you're driving, keep driving. Just listen. Close your eyes when you get home tonight. Close your eyes, and I want you to think of a beautiful place, your beautiful place, right? Whatever that is. Could be vacation, could be the ocean, could be the forest, could be sunset that you saw in Hawaii 20 years ago. And then as you're thinking of that place, your eyes are closed. You're gonna start breathing deeper. So I want you to take a deep breath through your nose. And I want you to fill your belly with air, right? So you're taking this slow, controlled, deep breath. And then you can hold it. It's very slow. It's a gift you're giving yourself. It's very kind to yourself. It's you saying, hey, I love myself. I'm giving myself the time that no one else will give me.
What do you
And then
mean by hold it?
you can breathe out now. Yeah, you don't have to hold it. You can hold it for as long or as little as you want. So this is what's interesting and I love about the breath work, right? You just keep breathing. So take another breath in. And then you're going to hold. And you just hold whatever feels good to you. I don't want you passing out, or again, you shouldn't be doing this when you're driving. And then breathe out. And a big part of this is, you can put your hand on your belly and practice this. Okay. You breathe in through your nose and you let your belly come out as you're breathing in through your nose. And then you hold, and then your belly goes in and you get that nice flat stomach again. But you're using this calming breath. And this is a breath that a lot of people have a hard time with. You might have your hand on your belly right now and go, keep breathing in and out as I'm talking. It could be choppy. It could be hard for you to actually breathe in and push your belly out. But the thing that you're doing is you're breathing like a baby, or some people call it Buddha breathing. And it's totally overlooked. And it's one of the best biohacking things you can do. And I want you to take another breath deep in, and the belly goes out. So as you're giving yourself each breath takes time, gives you time. You get to be in the present moment.
Mm.
You're focusing on your breath. You feel your breath moving. You feel your belly moving.
I feel like I'm sinking into the chair a little. I can hear and feel the air more than I did before.
It's beautiful. And let's do a couple more. Just get you right. We're really trying to get you in your best podcast mode here. So breathing in, the belly goes out. You're holding, the belly goes in. I'm just giving you these cues. So if you're following along, listening to this, you're going to breathe in one more time. Breathe in, the belly's going to go out. You're holding, and then you can open your eyes.
Mm.
And it's quick. It's like
Way better.
even 5 minutes or 10 minutes. You need 5 breaths.
Mm.
You need to cut off the sensories, right? Part of your senses. I mean, if you could put something over your ears and whatever, great. But sometimes it's just easier to close the eyes and start doing that breath work. And, and then for all of the science people out there that want to know what just happened, you went from a very stressed out, and I don't even want to say it that way, you just went from a very high functioning state of your brain where you're like, okay, cool. Yeah, we're having a conversation, right? That's what's happening. There's a lot of brain activity going on with a conversation. You're listening to me, I'm listening to you. But when you just closed your eyes and you took the deep breath, you went into a calmer brainwave state. I could tell you the names, but it just get confusing. I like simple. You went to a calmer brainwave state. In that state, you're going to be more creative. In that state, you're going to be more receptive to listening to things. In that state, you're going to be able to produce more for your business. In that state, you're going to think more about things you could be doing for your kids, your wife, your husband, whatever it is. You're going to get more creative. You're going to create an amazing podcast, best podcast ever, this episode. But and you could make that argument because you just did some breath work and you're connecting with that, right?
And I feel more in relationship with you now.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel in my body. I feel here now.
It's
You
the
can
best
probably
gift
hear, I hear a difference in my voice. I actually talked about this before. When I actually get present, my podcast voice comes back, and it just shifts. It's such an underused tool and such a superpower.
And you just said a great thing. You said it brings you back to the present. And that is another thing that is free to do. Practice being in the present moment. I call it a PMP, present moment practitioner. It's just a fun way to look at it. But because I like to think that way, am I being a present moment practitioner right now when I'm getting pissed off in traffic, or I don't like, because it's a little cloudy today. It's like 70 degrees and cloudy. I wish it was, sunny and 75, and so again, I can't really focus on the present moment when I'm so focused on these other things. And the breath work really allows us to get back to that present moment. And I think that's where the power is for all of us, being in the present moment. If you're in the present moment, you're listening to someone, you're getting insights, you're connecting on a level that most people just don't connect on. And you're gonna just be able to create so many different things depending on whatever the conversation is you're having with the other person.
I often say that leadership isn't like a checklist game, it's a nervous system game. And this breathing exercise that you just taught really calms the nervous system so that you can deal with whatever's coming along. So we get sleep in there. Now you've got me breathing. So now I'm oxygenated. What's next?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we talked about mindfulness. I mean, that is the part of this, the present moment, right? So going from there, I would say that's all cool. Yeah. Present moment. We just did breath work and we slept great tonight. But you've got to have systems for ways to stop yourself from doing what we do. We have habits. They're wired, right? So the brain wires a certain way. If we have these two wires and we connect them here, and then they fire because they're wired that way. So it's then, how do we change the wires if we're trying to do this? And if you could see, I'm holding my fingers together as pretending they're wires. But if we're firing and wiring that way,
But before you go on, let me podcast explain what you just said.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Because I've been talking. So people who've been listening know I've been talking about this quite a bit. Right? There's our habitual behaviors. Some of them healthy, some of them not. So when we get triggered, that's a habitual behavior. So when we respond poorly, that's a habitual behavior. When we want to respond, we're rising above our biology. We're changing the wiring, and instead of doing what we did before, we're going to do it a different way. And is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, and there's a lot. It goes back to just saying it's a pattern interrupt, just like you were talking about in the beginning of the show. It's like a pattern interrupt. How do we have a pattern interrupt? And sometimes we see someone trip on the sidewalk and we laugh and we go, we're in a bad mood, or something. And we're like, oh, thanks. That person just, made me laugh. And now I'm not in a bad mood.
Right.
So you look at this and you start to be more conscious aware too, right? So it's just being conscious. Everyone knows what it's heard of getting knocked unconscious. Oh, they got knocked unconscious. They got a concussion, whatever. Well, okay. If we get knocked unconscious, we can also be conscious. And so we just need to be very good and aware And this is what's great about pattern interrupts, I think, is being more conscious of the patterns we're running. And sometimes we don't even have to change the pattern, which is like, oh, mind blown. I mean, I could still be, getting mad about the weather. Sure, get mad about the weather, but just be conscious, aware of it. Self-awareness, whatever you want to call it, but you're aware that I'm getting upset about something like the weather. And if I'm getting upset about something like the weather, which I would say is pretty low-hanging fruit, it's not really, there are bigger things to worry about for all of us, then that's probably the first place I want to start. Start with the weather, start with the traffic, the two things, easy things you have no control over that everyone wants, a certain way. And you go, all right, I mean, it's raining. Great.
So in other words, you're saying interrupt those ways of normally thinking of being grumpy about the weather not being the way you want. Start with the small things, not I wish I was working at a different company, or I wish I had a different spouse and all that stuff. Start with oh, I'm in traffic. I think I'll just surrender to being in traffic.
Yeah, because it's like you're starting with the Super Bowl when you really, I mean, you want to start at the preseason. You want to start at, the Pop Warner. You want to start it as a kid. You want to learn these different things and grow up and then play in the Super Bowl, right? Whereas the other way, you're not. And you could say another tip to that is learning the power of the pause. I think is another thing I love to talk to people about. Pausing, just pausing, before you're even going to say something. Oh, I got to say something okay, what is the next thing I need to say? Nothing. There's this part of the human word is called human being. You could just be for a moment. And I love breaking words apart. You could just be in the moment, pause. You could be self-aware and you're going to break a pattern and you're going to go, before I speak, I'm going to pause and I'm going to change the way I respond to this event. But yes, starting with the weather, that's where it's so important to start with something small, because if you start with something big, I mean, you can try it, but let me know how it goes.
I think the ability to pause is like the first giant step from a default life to a created life. I think once someone gets that they can actually pause and choose, even if you don't the first few times, the first 1,000 times, when you get the pause, that's the first tool, I think, in creating a life rather than just living what you would have lived.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's just so much power in that, truly, and I think that's a great gift, right? That we can share with everyone. It's free and it's easy and it leads to bigger conversations. What do you mean pause? Well, I just mean you just had a reaction. Why not? What happens if you just paused? What if you just played the other perspective? What if you played the other tape? What if you did a little bit of acting? What if you just had fun with the situation? You would actually suffer less, because you start to realize other people's patterns better. And, you talk about being a leader. When you start to really understand other people's patterns, you get to lead them better, in my opinion.
True, true, true. So do you have these conversations with people while they're doing their pull downs and while they're doing their lunges across the gym?
Yeah, usually, and they're yelling at me like, I can't answer that right now. No, oftentimes, yes, it is. But I do have other technology I will not speak of, that I use with them as they're doing their sessions. But yes, we talk about a lot of this because that's what I love about this. It's not just a.
But I don't want you to talk about the technology specifically. What I want you to talk about is what does all these cool technologies that are showing up, what can we do now that we couldn't do 20, 30 years ago to help people?
It's like kind of a nuanced answer, I think, because we have so much technology. I'm talking to you. I wouldn't be able to talk to you and see you right now without it.
Good point.
But we need other things. It's interesting because, if someone doesn't know how to break a pattern or someone doesn't know how to breathe, they're going to go to their phone and they're going to look up a breathing app, right? Something like that. So it's an interesting spot to be in because I think that's where you have to look at this stuff and go, how do I use what's around right now? Technology? Yes, for sure. But, one of the best technological advances or not is just moving your body. I mean, our first conversation was that way. You were on a walk, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're moving your body. I mean, I think I was walking around the studio. I don't know what I was doing, but I was probably moving and doing something. And so my point is that is a huge piece again, where I tell it to people all the time, the people I'm training, I tell it to my kids, I tell it to strangers I don't know, and they're like, who are you? But I just say, if you're moving your body, that's what it's intended to do. And when you move your body, there's a lot of biological and chemical things happening that is going to create different experiences. And when you have that knowledge, if you can remember that, it's like I have a knowledge. This guy Mark on this podcast said to move my body. It was made to move, just like a car is made to drive. That's very simple. I think you understand a car is going to drive you from A to B. We need to understand and remind ourselves our body gets us from A to B, sure, but it's also been built to move. And the more it sits, and the more we stop doing things to work on it, and that includes this, like when this brain is not getting worked and not getting practice, or not getting practice it needs to evolve and to make us what everyone talks about at the end of the life, right? Is life fulfillment. It's like, okay, our life fulfillment, whatever our goal is or definition is of that, you know?
What didn't I ask you about? What do you just want people to know? What do you think, especially in this stressful day and age of politics and AI and what the hell is the future going to look like? What do you want people to know? Because you're a caring guy.
Yeah, I think it goes back to, a lot of what we were talking about. It, but just starting with the breath work, to me, I want people to breathe, really. And it sounds maybe weird, but I want people to breathe and just do some real deep breath work, because that's what we need to live. And I think this stuff gets overcomplicated, because then, oh, wait, hold on, everyone, listen to this. You need to get this breath work out. And I'm just kidding. You don't. I don't even know. Like, I wouldn't recommend one, because you already know how to breathe. We're breathing, and it's not to. I'm a simple person. We talked about this when we first. I mean, it was just I like preschool, or even whatever before preschool is, when you're teaching me something. I want you to teach me at the lowest level, because that's how my brain operates. So when you say, Mark, what's the best way for me? Like, if it's me, I'm like, Mark, asking you, what's the best way for me to calm down? How much do you do breath? Do you breathe? Like, do you know anything about breath work? I have no clue what you're talking about.
Right.
Okay, cool. We need to talk about your breath. And I'll tell you, all the people I have training, it's one of the things I love doing when they first start training is I make them do the breath work you did at the beginning. And it's all over the place. The belly's shaking. They
Yeah.
can't do it. The belly doesn't move. And then sometimes I have to put their hand on their belly and go, all right, now I want to feel you breathe. And then they start to breathe, and it's very calming, just like you experience. So I think the big thing I would want people to just take away from one thing in their life, it's free, it's easy, is just giving themselves time for 5 really deep, meaningful breaths a day, and see how that changes your week.
Just what you taught me, which was, breathe in, hold it just a bit, and then let it out. Because I'm different from before you did the breath work to now. It's such an underrated thing. Do you do video conference? Do you work with people all over the world, all over the country?
Yeah, over the world. I mean, I think probably the furthest has been Australia so far, but I love, again, the technology we have. We could be talking to anyone, so that's what I love about this.
So you can help. So if people listening, they're just fascinated with what you have to say. You can do Zoom calls with them, train them remotely, work with all these extracurriculars that you have.
Oh yeah, I love it. It's what I love doing.
If people want more of you, where can they find you?
Well, they can go to Instagram. There's a lot of videos out there. I talk about a lot of these things, and that's my name, Mark Anderson _MWA, or they can go to the website, which is mwafitness.com, and get more info there.
We'll have all those links in the show notes, so nobody has to remember it. Just go to the podcast webpage, and you'll be able to click, and you'll be able to find more of Mark. Mark, I appreciate you. I appreciate you geeking out on how to make us better. It again, in this day and age, I think we need everything we can get to be at our best, because I think the world is trying to knock us off our game from every single direction, from our food, from our media, from social media, from just everything. So people like you are saving lives. So thanks for what you do.
No, thank you. And thanks for having me on today.
To everybody else, like again, 1% better every day is so attainable. If you don't breathe, if you never thought about breathing, breathe. If you're wondering about your sleep, see if you can. I remember one of my uh, doctors said, Mark, just can you sleep for 15 more minutes? Can you just put your like do small steps and they compound, and you'll everything will change. I hope you appreciated this conversation. I love you a ton. Have a great rest of the day.